What's up, guys? Welcome back to Libertalia Game Supply. Today we got a little upgrade, or not upgrade, it's definitely a downgrade, but an update to the Bujin list that I've got going on for this format. So, as you guys are aware, I'm sure, the newest ban list came out, and it didn't help us in any way. If anything, it hurt us a little bit by taking away a couple Pot of Desires, which I was playing at 3. Now it is at 1, and so we're at 1. We also didn't get any Tenkies back, so that is still also at 1, and the consistency of the deck just continues to plummet. But we stand strong, and we keep playing it in hopes that one day they'll give us a couple Tenkies back, and we can get this deck rolling the way it should be. But until then, we'll do a little update. Quick explanation. It's not super different from what I was playing before, but it's different enough to be worth explaining a couple things. So the standard, we got triple Torifun, your rescue cat, tribute him to special summon a Bujin and a Bujingi from your deck, and then you're going to overlay and go into your combos. Then we got Mahitatsu. So this guy I've been using a lot more lately. I really like him a lot more now that I'm getting more used to using it and trying to fit it into combos. So he special summons himself from the hand by discarding a Bujin card. The fact that it's card and not monster is not relevant in my deck, but could be in any of yours. That would also imply that you could discard Bujin Carnation or Bujin Regalia the Sword, which are the only other really maybe common Bujin cards that aren't monsters that would be included in a deck at this point. Maybe Bujin Candescence. I don't play any of them, but I could see where you would find a way to fit them in, and that can become relevant. The most important thing about him is the second, or I guess the third effect, the second bulleted effect at the bottom here. You can banish a Bujin from your graveyard to then send one from your deck to the graveyard. So typically how I'd end up using that, if I open the Torifun, rather than wasting the Torifun summon on just a body like Yamato or Mikazuchi, I would summon my Bujingi. Maybe Hair or Sinew have been two of my favorites, and then this in defense mode, obviously. Then I would banish the Torifun unless I needed the effect that he gives Bujin Xyz monsters to banish stuff when they destroy him by battle. Otherwise, I'd banish the Torifun and then set up the graveyard with something else. So now off of just this one card, you have an Xyz monster on board plus 2 Bujingis in the grave once you detach. So it's usually going to be Susanoo with this left as material in the end phase, with like a Hair and a Sinew in the graveyard. So I've been liking this thing a lot. Definitely would keep it at 3. Then we got double Bujin Hirume, just a really good extender. Banish one from the graveyard to special summon it from your hand. So that can also kind of play into these other 6 cards here. So this can send material to banish for that. You can banish this for that, you know, whatever. So it's a nice 2 of. Wouldn't play it at 3 of because you can only control 1. So there's ways to play around it where you get into your combo, special summon the Hirume, then overlay it so that it becomes not a Hirume in name on the board, and then search for the other one to put the other one on board. But it takes a little bit of like workaround to make that happen, and so I wouldn't want it at 3. Other 2 ofs, we got Arasuda and Haruko, and I'll explain both. So the Arasuda was at 1. I bumped it to 2 because it can be triggered both by Hirume and Mahitatsu's banishing effects. And so it's really easy to trigger, so it's less dead in your hand now. You're not just hoping to have this with the Hirume. If you were to open this plus Torifun, let's say, you get to get the special summon by doing the little Mahitatsu play I was just explaining earlier. So it's just a free body on board. Nice little extender. For the Haruko here, this is your rank up. So you're going to use this to bump up your... usually Susanoo is the one you're summoning first in every turn, unless there's a specific need you have. And then you're going to rank this up into either Amaterasu, Kagutsuchi, or Tsukiyomi, depending on what's on your board and what you're trying to go into or what board you're playing against. So 2 is good. Also wouldn't want 3 of these because I only play 1 of each of the Bujingis that aren't Susanoo. And so once you've ranked up twice, you probably don't even really have much left to rank up into your extra deck that's going to be of value anyway. I suppose you could play more of the other ones, but it just doesn't really come up that often. Maybe Amaterasu. And then the OGs, Yamato and Mikazuchi. These are only here because I cannot cut them. They're my boys. I've been playing them forever, and I'm not going to stop playing them now. But you do not need these in any way. This can come up occasionally, the Yamato, if you get a really, really terrible hand, but this is in it, which would make it a little bit of a terrible hand in this current day and age. You get the search and the discard effect in the end phase. This guy, you only are ever going to use the effect that special summons him from your hand when one of your Bujin Beast Warriors gets destroyed, or at least I'm only going to use that effect because the effect to search a Bujingi or a Bujin spell or trap won't apply in this deck that doesn't play any, but once again, you could just play some and then you wouldn't have that problem. For Bujingis, we got the one Crane, double attack in the damage step, it's awesome. We got the one Hare, banished to protect one of your Bujins from Bujin Beast Warriors from being destroyed one time this turn. One Turtle, banished to negate an effect that targets a Bujin Beast Warrior. One Quillin, banished to pop a face-up card on the field. Super relevant, as is this one. So these two are kind of like a package deal. Bujingi Centipede and Bujingi Quillin. Both are mostly going to be used to get rid of like field spells, continuous spells, traps, anything like that. In Centipede's case, it pops set cards. So you would be able to clear out back row to try to push for a little bit more damage, whatever. So really nice. I like having both of them. And then the one Sinew. This thing has been MVP. I don't know if it's just because people aren't willing to read what it does or aren't familiar with it, but people will attack into Sinew and Grave all the time, and then you just crush some big monster they made because they think they can attack over your Susanoo or whatever. But pretty much it's just an honest, so it's like a Crane in the graveyard, but rather than doubling, it increases the attack of your monster by the attack of the attacking monster, and then your opponent takes half the battle damage. So in effect, if they attack with something with 3,000 attack, it'll raise your monster by 3,000, putting you up, say you had a Yamato on board at 1,800, he'll be at 4,800, their monster will die unless it has some special protection, and then they'll take 900 damage because it's half of the deficit. I don't know if you needed the math explanation, but I gave it to you anyway. There you go. But I really like this lineup in particular. Maybe the only thing I would consider is here, maybe you would play 2 Hare and cut the Turtle, or I would just side the second Hare, which I would do personally, and side it in if there's not a whole lot of targeting going on, because Hare ends up becoming super handy. But Kagutsuchi has been coming out on the field a lot more, which is pretty much 2 Hares that don't need graveyard setup, so I don't know that you necessarily need it. And then for hand traps, I got 2 Ghost Ogre. I just like it. I like being able to remove some stuff on the field. It can hit monsters as well as spells or traps if they're activating effects while they're face up already. So I like it. You could also play Veiler. You could also play whatever Ash Blossom, whatever hand traps you like. If you play in Master Duel, you can make these Max Cs. Whatever. This is kind of a free 2-card spot for whatever hand traps you like. Nibiru even. For our one-ofs, we got the Sad Pot of Desires, which is now at 1. We got the Sad Tenki, which is also at 1. And we got the Tensu, which is a new addition to the deck. So Tensu has also been a really cool little pseudo extender. So if you open this with a couple of like normal summonable guys, plus one of your Mahitatsu, Torifun, whatever, it pretty much lets you go crazy. So what it does is it gives you a free extra normal summon of a Beast Warrior during your main phase, and it also boosts the attack of all of your Beast Warriors by 100, which is moderately relevant. But basically what you're looking for is to get that extra normal summon, especially now that we lost the ability to search Torifun or dig for Torifun nearly as much as we could have before. Being able to make plays with the cards in your deck that aren't Torifun are going to be more important than ever. So I like the Tensu. I would keep it at 1 though. I don't think 2 is necessary. 2 is probably pretty useless actually. You're going to see it more than you really need it. A couple more one-ofs. We got Called by the Grave, Foolish Burial, Monster Reborn, and then Harpy's Feather Duster. So pretty staple cards, and we'll throw these in here also. We got a 2 of Twin Twister to kind of go with the Feather Duster. So all this stuff is pretty standard. The back row hate is in excess now, especially when you got Skill Drain at 3 running amok. You need to be able to clear back row, otherwise your deck gets messed up. This deck in particular can kind of play through it if you already have graveyard set up, because skill drain obviously is not going to cut off your like hair and Quillin and turtle and sinew effects. But it makes it really hard to play through boards when you're only relying on stuff you can put in your graveyard, so back row hate's important. I would probably cut the extra one of the Twin Twisters here if you wanted to play something else. So that's kind of a free spot also, but it's a second Twin Twisters for now. For sure, if we get more Tenkies back in the future, I would play more Tenkies instead of the extra back row hate probably. And then the last 9 cards in the main deck here, the holy trinity of FU, we'll call it. So triple forbidden droplet, triple solemn strike, triple infinite impermanence, shutdown effects, cut attacks in half, negate and destroy summons and whatever, and awesome cards. Obviously they're worth what they're worth for a reason, right? There's a reason Droplet's been reprinted a couple times and still is $100. But really nice. You kind of need it in this deck just because you're not going to be able to outspeed them or outbuild your board. Maybe if you draw like the absolute best hand ever, you could outspeed some decks, but it's not common, and so you need to be able to slow them down or shut some stuff off so that you have an opportunity. And that's the main deck. We'll get into the extra deck here. So there's my little field center of my dog. That was a gift from a friend. It looks very nice and I love it. So for extra deck here, we got the one Ahashima summons it with 2 monsters of the same level, which is everything but your Ghost Ogres, and then it can special summon 1 from your hand and 1 from your graveyard monsters with the same level, and then you're going to overlay them, and then if it's pointing to your Xyz monster when it activates its effect, it can pop some back row. This I don't really use super often, and I also don't play any other link monsters. Also, you can't link summon with this thing anyway, so it wouldn't even matter. You can't link climb with it, otherwise that thing would be nuts. But still a pretty good card. It'll come up occasionally if you're just trying to push a little extra damage on board and you've expended a lot of your other extra deck options, so that's why it stays in here. There's also not much else that needs to be fit in here at the moment. As I've talked about, triple Susanoo, I've been a little bit more brief in explaining what the combos of the deck are aiming towards in this particular build, because I've explained it in great detail, probably too much so, in a couple other deck profiles on the channel. So if you're looking for a more thorough explanation, check out the Master Duel deck list or the previous IRL deck list that was prior to this one. But Susanoo is kind of like the heart and soul of your extra deck. It's that search, it's that first summon pretty much every time, and so that's why we play 3 of them. 2 is not enough. I burn through 3 very common, very often, and so I'm keeping it at 3. Detach to search 1, either add it to your hand or put it in the graveyard, so versatile. Also a nice little combo there is once you summon it, if you didn't banish the Torifune for one of those other effects we talked about earlier, you attach Torifune to it. This thing can attack every monster your opponent controls once, so maybe you would attach the Torifune, send the sinew or add the crane to your hand, and then just attack everything your opponent controls, and it's going to banish everything as long as you can attack over it. So really nasty. And since we talked about skill drain earlier, Eldritch gets kind of wrecked if you start banishing all of their golden lords off of this guy, so really cool. And then for our one of Bujinkis, Bujintais, Kagutsuchi, Amaterasu, and Tsukiyomi. So all of them have been very useful lately. I wouldn't cut any of them. This is probably the least useful one, but it's a nice, if you know you're going into your F-Zero play, rather than killing a Susanoo, like burning a Susanoo or a Kagutsuchi as the extra body once you've used Amaterasu to extend a little bit, I would go into this to try to reload the hand a little bit. So like set all your back row, your chalices and stuff, keep 1 card in hand, summon the Tsukiyomi, detach, discard your 1 card, draw 2. Hopefully it puts you in a little bit better position, so really nice still. Amaterasu is your rank up play most of the time. You're going to rank up your Susanoo into Amaterasu to special summon back one of your banished Bujin monsters, and then you're going to hopefully have another extender in order to overlay the thing you special summon back and your extender into another Susanoo to keep your play going. On your opponent's turn, you can detach 1 to search back return a banished Bujin to your hand. So that comes up rarely because I don't often leave this sitting on the field unless the graveyard setup is nasty. Like if I have a huge back row, all of my Bujingis are in the graveyard, and maybe I have this guy on board also to protect extra, then I might leave this because you're giving up a lot of opportunity by getting rid of your Bujin Beast Warriors with your graveyard setup by making F-Zero. So then I would leave it, and then at that point maybe I would search one back in the end phase or add one back in the end phase, but usually you're not using that effect. And then Kagutsuchi, this guy is awesome. So if you do make F-Zero and have the nuts in hand, you can make this alongside F-Zero, and it's all a terrible board to try to break. So on summon, it mills 5, and then you get 100 attack for every Bujin card that was milled, which is pretty frequently 2, maybe 3. So on average, he's probably 2,800 attack. Then if a Bujin you control would be destroyed, you can detach one to prevent it from being destroyed, and that's not once per turn. So he can, if you only had this on board with 2 materials, you got to destroy it 3 times to actually get it off the field. So that with F-Zero, that negates effects and steals things, is it's a rough one for people to get around. I like it a lot. Speaking of F-Zero, we got our F-Zero package. So most common line of play is Susanoo, get into your extender to rank up into this, detach to add a body, use your extender to overlay for, we'll say Tsukiyomi in this instance, do your Tsukiyomi effect, overlay into F-Zero, overlay into F-Zero Utopic Draco Future, and then you've got a very nasty monster on board, and it's pretty easy, like fairly consistent. I would say like maybe 60 to 70% of your hands you can make this turn 1. So turn 1 with a little bit of back row, if you can make this with like a strike and a imperm or a strike and a chalice or whatever in your back row, it's going to be a rough turn for your opponent to try to get through because you can just shut off everything. So I like this. This thing is like the boss monster. If Susanoo is the heart and soul, this is the big daddy for sure. We got Zeus. I don't summon it super often, but it comes up occasionally, if not for anything other than that 3,000 attack. And the board wipe can be cool, but you're usually giving up one of your bigger, better monsters for that board wipe, so it depends on the situation. And you know, we'll do this guy next. So, and this is usually going to be the board wipe I'd rather go for. So I don't have to give up a monster. You're just going to use a couple of your bodies. And it's probably a little easier to get to because you don't have to go through your battle phase. What do I got on the card there? It must be in the sleeve. I'll worry about it later. But the detach to wipe the board is pretty cool, and it can come up. It can be relevant. So I like the Exciton. It's also one of my favorite extract monsters, so I'm not cutting it. 106 is just there for the flex. I almost never make it. It's just effect negation if you end up using it. Tornado Dragon, just back row hate. I do use this fairly frequently. Number 60, Dugaris, the Timeless. I would use it a lot more if it wasn't a number monster because you can't make F-Zero with number monsters, so this would be replacing Tsukiyomi for sure if that were the case. But it's not, so the extra draw 2 is just digging super deep. If your deck is thinning and you know you have Torifuns in the deck, maybe it's worth digging for it and trying to really get a hold of them, but otherwise it's just there as a just in case. And then I would say this is an unexpected little, maybe not, I don't know, it's decently often that this comes up. So on summon, it'll search a fire formation spell or trap, but spell in my case, and put it face down in your field, and then you can activate it right away. So it'll get you your Tensu or your Tenki. It also can detach to negate all monsters face-up effects on your opponent's side of the field. So like whatever's currently there, you can detach to negate all the effects. So typically if I'm going and going and going, so this could take the place of Tsukiyomi perhaps, because it is not a number monster. You're gonna use your extenders, you made the Amaterasu, you overlay for this, get your Tenki search maybe, and search for whatever. If you want another extender because you have a crazy hand, if you want the Torifun for next turn, maybe you have something in your hand and you search the Tensu so that you can get the extra normal summon. It's really cool, and then you can detach to shut off effects if you need to start kind of blowing stuff up with effects or trying to attack over stuff that's giving you problems. So this is also a really awesome card. I like it at 1. I played it way back in the day, like when you played Bear in the deck, which is an eternity ago now. And then cut it and just never really thought about it again until recently. So I'm happy that I rediscovered it. But that'll do it. That's going to wrap it up for this little update of the deck. Hopefully in the coming years, our ban list can be kinder to us and we can get that Tenki back. Even at 2, give me 2 Tenki and never give me another Pot of Desires, or take my last Pot of Desires for 3 Tenki and I would be a happy, happy man. But thank you guys for checking out this update. If you have comments or suggestions or questions, leave them in the comments section below. If you've watched videos of mine in the past and you found them helpful or useful or entertaining, please give me a follow or a subscribe. And if you want to give me a follow on Instagram at Libertalia_game_supply, I would also be very, very thankful for that. So thank you guys once again. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you next time.